Hello everyone, I'm Yuxiang from Tsinghua University. Today I will talk about one of our works titled Man-in-the-Middle Attacks Without Rogue AP, when WPAs meet ICMP redirects. This is a collaborative work between Tsinghua University, George Mason University, and Zhongguancun Lab. So in this work, we uncover a new man-in-the-middle attack that can evade the security mechanisms such as the WPAs in Wi-Fi networks. The attacker can spoof as a legitimate access point to send a forward ICMP redirect message to a victim client and hijack the traffic from it to a targeted remote server stealthily. And I will introduce our work as the following steps. So first, let me introduce the mechanism of ICMP redirect, which is defined in the RFC 792. Generally speaking, the mechanism of ICMP redirect helps host update its routing and optimize the forwarding path dynamically, thus improving the network performance. For example, we have a host which has a default gateway to forward its packet to a destination. First, if the host wants to send packets to a destination, it will firstly send the packet to its current gateway. And the current gateway will forward the packet to its next hop, and then the next hop will route the packet to the final destination. Now suppose that the current gateway finds that the host and its next hop are in the same network. In this case, the current gateway will send an ICMP redirect message to the host and tell him that you can directly send your future packets to a new gateway as your next hop. And when the host receives the ICMP redirect message from its current gateway, it will first check the legitimacy of the message to validate it. And once the checks are passed, the host will rewrite its routing cache. And for later packets to a destination, the host will direct them to a new gateway, which will then route them to a destination. In this way, the network performance has been improved. And then let's introduce what types of legitimacy checks will be performed over these ICMP redirects. So on the right is an example of the ICMP redirect message. When the host receives an ICMP redirect, it will perform two checks to validate the legitimacy. First, it will check whether the message was sent by its current gateway by comparing the source address with the gateway source address. In the case of Wi-Fi network, the address is actually the AP router's IP address. And we find that the first check is very easy to bypass, as the attacker can spoof as the AP to send fake packets, which is generally allowed in Wi-Fi networks. And secondly, the host will check the format of the ICMP redirect message. Typically, the ICMP redirect should contain at least 28 octets or bytes of the original packet that triggered the ICMP message. And we find that this check can also be bypassed as the attacker can make a crafted ICMP redirect message, which can be verified by the host successfully. As the stateless protocols such as UDP, which usually cannot remember data that has been sent earlier, so the attacker can craft ICMP redirects embedded with this kind of stateless protocols to evade the checks. And we take the UDP protocol as an example. Let's say that the ICMP redirect message is specified with an UDP packet. The modern operating systems will check the existence of the corresponding UDP socket. Actually, we found that once the source port in the ICMP error message is an active port opened on the host, the check will be satisfied. So the attacker only has to probe the opened UDP ports on the host, and as we all know, modern systems usually open certain public loan UDP ports by default for lightweight communications. Then the attacker can just use the probed port and fill other fields to craft an ICMP redirect message, poison the routing cache of the victim. So, based on the vulnerability of ICMP redirect, we can launch a traffic hijacking attack in Wi-Fi networks, and the attack can evade the link layer security mechanisms enforced by WPAs. At the beginning, the with the protection of WPA mechanisms. The traffic originating from the victim client to the remote server is sent to the AP first and encrypted by a session key between the AP and the victim. The attacker is located in the same network. He can leave the encrypted frames, but it cannot decrypt them without knowing the particular session key of the victim client. And in this attack, the destination server can be set as some popular services. For example, the famous DNS servers and web search engines or social sites. Then our attack consists of 3 steps as shown in the right figure. In the first step of the attack, the attacker actively tricks the victim client into creating a routing entry for the remote server by sending some fake echo requests as a server to the victim. After receiving them, the victim client will reply the server with some echo replies, and it will create a routing entry in its routing cache table, which instructs how to forward the latter packet to the remote server. And second, the attacker finds active UDP ports by sending probing packets to the victim clients via tools like Nmap or else. And in the second step, the attacker crafts an ICMP redirect message embedded with a fake UDP header carrying the prop open UDP port. Now, when the ICMP redirect passes the legitimacy checks at the victim client, it will update the gateway to the server by rewriting the routing cache. And in the third step, the attacker evades WPAs and hijacks the victim client traffic in plain text at the link layer. Since in the infrastructure mode of Wi-Fi networks, all of the frames of the client should go through the AP first at the link layer. And the security mechanisms such as WPAs will encrypt each hop at the link layer using independent session keys. However, after the routing table has been poisoned, the misredirected frames from the victim client to the attacker will firstly be decrypted by the access point, and then the access point will encrypt the frames using the session key shared with the attacker. So the attacker actually has become a man in the middle between the victim client and the remote server. And he can observe the traffic pass through it, and then he can hijack the victim client's traffic in plain text, and finally bypass the protection of WPAs. The attack can be conducted under various scenarios to compromise the network. For example, the attacker can hijack DNS queries from the victim or steal personal privacy from HTTP traffic, and so on. And we conduct extensive real-world evaluations to measure the impacts of this attack. We first investigate if the APs can block this kind of crafted ICMP redirect message issued from the attacker. Theoretically, the AP should be able to identify the illegality of the crafted ICMP redirect, because the source IP address is specified with AP itself, and then it should discard it. However, we find that in practice, in order to improve the efficiency of packet forwarding, the NPU processing chips from manufacturers such as Qualcomm, HiSilicon, Broadcom, and router will relay packets directly at the hardware layer once they receive the packets or frames. In this way, the security checks rules such as source address validation set by the IP or the other upper protocols in the protocol stack to intercept these malicious messages will not take effect. And Qualcomm has assigned a CVE for this vulnerability due to our report. And we have evaluated against 55 mainstream wireless routers from different vendors and confirmed the vulnerability. None of them can block the crafted ICMP address messages with the spoof source address of the router itself. And next, we evaluate our attack against the security mechanisms of WPA2 and WPA3 in various real-world Wi-Fi networks. We evaluate 122 real-world public Wi-Fi networks, such as restaurants, shopping malls, libraries, so on. And we discover that 89% of them may suffer from the man-in-the-middle attack. And the failure cases are mainly due to specific network policies such as AP isolation, which constrains the communication between internal clients. And we also evaluate the operating systems which are affected by the attack. According to the ICMP specifications, ICMP redirects are used to reduce route hops and improve network performance. Hence, the ICMP redirect mechanisms is enabled by default in a wide range of operating systems. For example, the UX versions of Linux, FreeBSD, and some previous versions of macOS, iOS, and Android. So for the countermeasures, we also propose two countermeasures to prevent the attack. The first countermeasure is from the client side, and that the client should detect the inconsistency between the source IP address and the source MAC address of the ICMP address. As we can see, the fake ICMP address is from the attacker, and the source MAC address is the attacker itself, while the legal ICMP address is from the AP. So the client should check the inconsistency and discuss the malicious message. And the second countermeasure is from the AP side, that we can enhance APs by filtering fake ICMP address messages whose source address is the AP itself. The AP can identify the anomaly during the message forwarding. This countermeasure relies on the collaboration between the chip manufacturers of the vulnerable NPUs and the AP vendors. Finally, let's conclude this work. In this work, we uncover vulnerability of the NPUs in routers that can be exploited by a malicious client to spoof as the AP to send false ICMP redirect messages in Wi-Fi networks. And we develop new techniques to evade the legitimacy checks on the ICMP redirect. And we demonstrate that ICMP redirect can be exploited to evade the security features, even the newest WPA3 or Wi-Fi networks, to perform a man-in-the-middle attack. And we evaluate the attack against popular routers and real Wi-Fi networks. And we propose to countermeasure while enhancing the clients or the APs. Okay, thank you. I'm happy to take your questions.
Time for questions. All right, let me ask one question. So in your defense, you said that the source address and MAC address that will be checked. So what will happen if the attacker also try to impersonate as the AP's MAC address?
Yeah, good question. So we have taken this case into consideration. We find that if the attacker changes its MAC address into the AP's MAC address, to evade this countermeasure, since we find that if he changes his MAC address to the AP's MAC address, it will cause BSSID conflicts in the Wi-Fi network, and the attacker's network adapters will lose the connection to the AP. As a result, he cannot be able to issue any message to the other clients. So he cannot evade this countermeasure by changing his MAC address.
All right. So have you discussed these countermeasures with the affected vendors?
Yes, we have reported this vulnerability to the affected vendors, and many of them have applauded this attack, and the Qualcomm has fixed the vulnerability, and some of them are still investigating, and we are still contacting with them.
Right. Thank you so much. Let's thank the speaker again. So next.